to the police stations.
The newspapers published a photo of the missing woman. 1 month later, a police reservist stumbled across a field near Boksburg prison that was littered with bodies. Trifina Mogotsi was one of the 10 victims found there. The black community held a prayer vigil for the murdered women and demanded swift justice.
As a black man in that community, if I know that you did that to my sister, my mother, my daughter, I'm not going to wait for the police to come and give me any kind of justice. I will get people together and you will be punished.
Inspector Leon Nell and his team called Kids Haven, where Trifina had worked. Through her co-workers, police learned that on the day she disappeared, she'd gone to meet a man named Moses Sithole. But Sithole is a common name in South Africa. So Nell returned to the facility and passed around a mugshot of a specific man, a Moses Sithole who'd been arrested for rape in 1989.
We showed it to the people at Kids Haven, Esther Moshangu, and the other relevant people that pointed him out, and that's how we knew it was Moses Sithole.
Authorities finally knew the identity of the serial killer they'd been seeking for over a year. But as investigators closed in, Sithole was frantically trying to evade capture. He called members of the press in an attempt to gain information about the investigation. At 6 o'clock on October 2nd, 1995, the phone rang in the newsroom of the Johannesburg Star. Reporter Tamsin de Beer took the call.
I answered the phone and I heard the words, "I'm the man that everyone is looking for."
The person on the other end of the line introduced himself as Joseph and claimed to be responsible for the murders.
It was like alarm bells ringing in my head, like, get your typing fingers going, get your wits about you.
De Beer quickly began to transcribe the call. Over the next several days, she and the killer would have 3 lengthy conversations.
He would call from a phone booth, and there was a degree of trust that we were building up. He was a very well-spoken, charming person on the telephone. I mean, he had an accent, so English wasn't his first language. So I imagine in his first language he was quite charming.
He told De Beer he was killing out of revenge for being wrongly convicted of rape. He claimed the murders were committed to draw attention to the injustice he had suffered.
He didn't want to be caught by the police. That was in fact his motive for calling. He wanted to outsmart them.
De Beer thought it might be a hoax, but the caller gave vivid descriptions of the killings. As the calls continued, Sithole confided more and more to the 26-year-old De Beer.
He described how some women would fight, other women would just give up. It was of some interest to him, I think, how certain women would respond and others would fight. I remember him saying that some women were as strong as men, and he really struggled with them.
De Beer contacted the police and gave them transcripts of the conversations. But they were not certain that she was dealing with the actual killer. So the next time Joseph called, she asked him to prove he was the serial murderer. He revealed the location of a body that the police had not yet found.
It wasn't a recent victim. He said there was a piece of metal over her body, and that he had gone back and he had lifted up the piece of metal and found her there, and she was basically a skeleton at this point.
De Beer relayed the information to the authorities. After several searches, investigators discovered the woman in the veld outside Johannesburg.
He then described where another body was, a relatively fresh one, that she was hanging half in a tree.
Police found the body just as Joseph described. She was the killer's latest victim, a 31-year-old woman who had disappeared just the day before. Police were waiting nearby when Sithole contacted De Beer for the 3rd time. When the money ran out on Sithole's payphone, De Beer asked him for the number to call him back, and he gave it to her. Investigators traced the number to a nearby train station. De Beer kept Sithole on the line while officers rushed to intercept him.
He said, "Hang on," and the phone went dead. There was nothing. And I remember on the line going, "Hello, hello, hello, hello."
De Beer was upset. During the course of their phone conversations, she'd begun to feel sympathy for Sithole.
I was quite alarmed that perhaps the police had shot him. And I remember thinking, no, shame, you know, this poor man out there, this lost, broken person, which of course he was, but he was also a monster.
Sithole was now on the run, and police were desperate to catch him before he killed again. On October 13th, 1995, his photo appeared on television and in newspapers from Johannesburg to Pretoria. That evening, Tamsin de Beer's phone rang again.
This Joseph character basically shouted at me about how could I have done that. But what did I do? We had a trust going. I broke the trust.
A few days later, Moses Sithole got in touch with his brother-in-law, Maxwell Makabeni, hoping to get a gun. Makabeni told Sithole he would help. He arranged to meet Sithole at the factory where he worked. Maxwell then called the police. Undercover police officer Francis Mulovedzi was posted at the gate ready to arrest the murderer. When Sithole arrived, he sensed the trap and fled. He ran into a dark alley. Officer Mulovedzi was close behind. Suddenly, Sithole turned and took a swipe at the officer with an axe. In response, Mulovedzi fired several shots. Sithole was hit in the abdomen and in the leg. Police rushed him to the hospital. Vinol Viljoen tried to interrogate Sithole, but he was uncooperative.
I asked him, Moses, did we find all the victims? So his answer to me was, I don't know. And I started thinking, what does he mean by I don't know? So I asked him again, Moses, did we find all the victims? And he said to me, I don't know, because I wasn't with you.
Investigators reasoned that since Sithole's victims were women, a female detective might be better able to draw him out. The strategy worked. He became aroused at the thought of his crimes.
He started bragging to her how he killed them, what he did, and that sort of thing.
When asked why he raped and strangled 37 women, Moses Sithole said, I did it to teach them a lesson. After recovering from his wounds, Sithole was transferred to a prison near Pretoria to await trial. There he received numerous death threats from angry citizens. Sithole was heavily guarded by an elite police unit. Leon Nell remembers the tense situation.
We did not want anything to happen to Moses. We wanted to have a fair trial.
While in prison, a fellow inmate, Derek Skuman, gained Sithole's confidence and videotaped their conversations.
Strangle her or beat her?
No, I didn't beat anybody.
Just strangle?
Yeah.
How long does it take for somebody to die if you strangle them?
A few minutes.
Is it?
Yeah, 5 minutes is too much.
Sithole described his intense anger towards women.
I fully hate a black woman. A woman can hurt you more than a man, more than anybody in this world.
On October 21st, 1996, Moses Sithole was charged in the Pretoria High Court with 38 murders and 40 rapes.
There was much more ladies he raped and killed that we knew about, but there wasn't sufficient evidence to obviously charge him on these cases.
More than 140 witnesses testified for the state, including Trifina Mogotsi's best friend, Esther Mahlangu.
When we go to the court with Moses Sithole, I was very much scared, but I did go through this court thing, and then we went